Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb. Welcome, everyone, to MotorWeek podcast number 313. Boy, I hope that's a lucky number today. I am your host, John Davis. You know, from the 9th generation Toyota Camry to the all-new Lucid Gravity SUV. Today on our podcast, we're going to recap everything new from the 2023 Los Angeles Auto Show. Then we've had our first opportunity to get behind the wheel of the all-new Toyota Tacoma, almost guaranteed to be a big hit. Plus, we'll have a lightning round on how you can buy your next car online in a way that wasn't available before, and a viewer question about which EVs will be able to charge at Tesla's superchargers next year. Joining me are our digital producer, Jessica Ray, and our writer, Alex Kellum. Welcome, everyone.
Hi. How are you?
Good to be here.
And let's get right to it. In recent years, I think we'd all agree the LA Auto Show has become the most influential auto show in the country. And while the number of reveals of all new models that we see at all the auto shows seems to continue to shrink, the latest edition of the LA Auto Show did see some interesting vehicles brought to the public for the first time, and a couple we weren't quite sure were going to be there. Alex, you attended the show in person, so you actually got to see all of these new models. Why don't you start us off with what I think was the most important reveal, and that's the 2025 Toyota Camry.
Indeed, I will. So, of course, the Camry is continuing, but really, was there any doubt that it would? But the most important thing with the new Camry, yes, it's still a sedan, still the four-door we know and love, but it's hybrid only. So every grade that you buy has Toyota's 5th generation hybrid system.
Finally.
Yes.
Yes.
And speaking of, I believe there's only 4 grades. So it's the SE, the XSE, LE, XLE.
Now, that's interesting because that follows the industry trend of simplifying your trims simply so they don't have as much complexity on the assembly line. So that makes it, the consumer gets a little more for the money, but the manufacturer saves a whole lot in the manufacturing costs. Go ahead.
And in tandem with that, the Camry, you know, you could get all-wheel drive on certain grades. Well, now with this new generation, all-wheel drive will be available on every single grade. So it doesment matter which one you step at, which trim. If you want all-wheel drive, yeah, you can option it if you so choose. Under the hood specifically, it's a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder. With all-wheel drive, it's 225 horsepower and 232 pound-feet of torque, which I believe it's more powerful than it was before, for sure. And I want to say it's the most powerful Camry they've made.
Gee, I don't know. You have to go back to some of the V6 days. But anyway, it's more than adequate for the duty of it. I think it looks a lot better. I think they've smoothed out some of their styling.
I mean, it's not like revolutionary on the outside.
Camry.
It's very similar to the Camrys that you see on the road today, but that's not a bad thing.
And that's kind of the trend they've always held. So
yeah, and I think when it comes to whether you're going to compare, say, this and an Accord, which that kind of saw a more revolutionary redesign recently.
Yeah, it looks more like a train on the front end.
I think Camry buyers, current Camry owners and future Camry buyers will probably be very happy with the very conservative styling.
You know, it's very significant, I think, that the Toyota Camry and the Honda Accord soldier on while so many manufacturers have been dropping their mainline family four-doors. And these two vehicles have always, in the last 30-plus years, have been the benchmarks for everybody else that wanted to be in the family car business. And they're still here despite the big SUV trade. Any new technology on it?
Inside, I think the big thing here is that you can get 12.3-inch screens. Those are available. That's not standard. I want to say standard, it's a 8-inch head unit, and then it's a 7-inch for the digital drivers cluster. But the 12.3 inches are available. I think beyond that, I mean, it's pretty much the same. I don't think there's any major, like you said, like a revolutionary thing in there. I'm sure there's some extra.
No, I mean, it'll
bits and
just
bobs.
get Toyota's, multimedia system that they've been putting in slowly into all of their new models, which is a a really good system. So yeah, I think it looks great on the inside. Simple.
Toyota Safety Sense 3
Yeah.
will also be included. So.
Yeah, the interior of the last generation, I thought, really didn't make a significant leap. This one does. So it looks much, much better. But also, interestingly enough, at a time when we've now seen the Toyota Avalon go away, which was always the first step up after you were a Camry owner, and enter the Toyota Crown, there was news on the Toyota Crown area as well.
The regicide continues. Now the Crown will be having it's coming after the Venza with the new Crown Signia, which is the SUV spin, which in a way is
So
kind
in
of...
other words, the station wagon with all-wheel drive.
And it's kind of funny because I remember when the Crown was first being teased, one of the original teasers. I mean, all the other words were in Japanese, but they had like SUV ? Sedan ? And it's like, okay, what's it going to be? So now I think Jess, you and me talked about this yesterday, where like the Crown in a way almost straddles that line of like SUV and sedan, but leans more on sedan. Whereas now the Signia is maybe a little bit more on the SUV side, but wagon-like, you know.
Yes.
I think what's significant here, though, is that while you've got a very conservatively styled Camry, and the Avalon was always very conservatively styled, this is a significant leap. The Crown, I don't think anybody really thinks the Crown was conservative when they first saw it. And now you've gone one step further with this station wagon, hatchback, all-wheel drive, whatever you want to call it. And they're really giving buyers something to move up to from the Camry.
And I think that kind of brings up a really good point. What happens to the Venza? Which that's what this entry is really about. That's what the Venza is meant to do. And so,
and it just had, the new Venza just did not catch on. The old Venza didn't catch on. So
the Venza will be leaving production in model year 24.
Has that been absolutely confirmed? I think it's what everybody thinks.
I haven't talked to a Toyota person specifically, but that is the news, is that this will leave in favor of replacing that spot, the Toyota Crown Signia replacing that spot, because, I mean, this really looks like what the Venza should have looked like when it was reborn.
Inside. I mean, the Venza is basically built on a much tidier chassis, so this is going to give people substantially more interior room.
Correct. It's bigger, but it's that. What, is it a wagon or is it an SUV? It has a little bit more ground clearance than the older Venza, but to me, like, I think those buyers, when they saw the new Venza, they're like, oh, that's nice, but that's not what I had.
And
this is what I'd have.
It wasn't different enough from the other Toyota SUV offerings to really stand out. I've always liked the Venza, but I
thought it was a very good RAV4.
Yep,
that's
it. It's basically a very good, same chassis, very good RAV4.
And it is important to note with the Crown Signia, because we were talking about hybrid with the Camry, that hybrid is also the case here. But all-wheel drive is standard, so it doesn't matter which grade you get, you will be getting all-wheel drive.
But no performance hybrid for it.
I don't think so. No, I think it's all the same.
A lot of people have been wondering why they didn't do that. I'm thinking, well, you know, you don't really need necessarily
for
the
this
performance.
buyer. I think it's just a standard hybrid, because you're looking about like 36 miles per gallon combined is what Toyota is saying, which is 4 less than what the Venza could get, because the Venza, I believe, is at 40 miles per gallon.
But it's bigger.
Yes, this is bigger.
For those of you that don't understand what we're...
It is a 5-seater still, we should say that.
Yeah, it's only 2 rows. A lot of manufacturers, and Toyota's really at the pinnacle of this right now, are not only using hybrid powertrains for fuel economy, they're also doing performance versions, which really sacrifice some fuel economy for more power. And the Crown has such a powertrain, but
Crown Sedan.
The Crown Sedan, we should say that. But the new SUV does not.
Yes, it's a little odd, but...
Okay, there also was an entry of a vehicle that I almost thought was mythical, because we'd been hearing about it for so long, but not really seeing much about it in reality, or I should say in sheet metal. The 2024 Lucid Gravity, their SUV, which has been a long time coming. So what did you think?
Yeah, you know, gravity may be a theory, but this one is very real. It was the first stop for many of us journalists because it was the first press conference. The big takeaway, or one of the big things that they were kind of boasting, instead of putting I should quantify this first by saying they're estimating a range in excess of 440 miles. And
How big is it?
The actual vehicle itself,
mean,
or
is
the battery pack?
No, as far as the vehicle, I mean, is it a mid-size? Is it full-size? What is it?
I want to say it's a mid-size,
Mid-size.
but it's not.
It's two-row,
It's
right?
yes, it's
Yeah.
a two-row. I don't know what the platform's built on, but the big thing they wanted to talk about with the battery was, in order to get that range, they didn't want to just stuff a massive battery in there. I mean, it's still a pretty big battery. It's 112 kilowatt hours, so it's big. But they were kind of talking about how they wanted to have more of they're playing to the efficiency, right? They're playing more to the the aerodynamics and making sure that it's using the energy that we have in there to a better advantage.
You can see in the styling, because it's it looks very much like the Lucid sedan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's literally a Lucid sedan, but
Made
just
into an
taller.
SUV. So
Yeah.
that's a
So-
pretty big size. That's a
that-
pretty big vehicle.
Well, and that like that styling is incredibly aerodynamic,
Yeah.
and also their battery technology is very good.
It's actually some of the
Very
best
good.
out there, probably right up, if not a little bit better than Tesla as far as density. So I'm interrupted you. So what is
Yeah.
the range that they're expecting?
Well, right now they're just saying in excess of 440 miles.
so they've got
That's-
500 on the sedan.
So, right. So we'll be, hopefully getting close up there. They also talked about how like all occupants from front row to second row will
There's
be
a third
comfortable.
row, we should say.
Oh,
that.
yes.
Oh, there
there
is a third
up to-
row.
Yeah, there are two configurations. You can get one with
So
just
standard
a five-seater,
five-seater.
but it's up to 7.
Yeah.
But is the third row usable? See one now.
They were saying that you can comfortably fit all adults in here.
Okay.
No problem. Now,
see.
that's hard. Yeah. I mean, that's just words,
Of course, that's PR speak.
Right. The other thing they were saying is, they were talking about how like you can load it up. So a 1,500-pound payload, 6,000 or I think 6,000. Yeah, up to 6,000 pound towing.
So like a small Airstream they were showing off. That
They really want you to know that it's luxurious, but it is also utility. And finally,
That cuts your range down to what? Around the block.
Yeah, something like that. But the other thing they mentioned was it will start under $80,000, which to me sounds
By
like
two.
it sounds like it's going to start.
Eventually, it will start under $80,000 because that's exactly what they said about the sedan.
Yeah.
But all they were building were the
150,000
loaded
one, yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Sapphires and the Dream Editions.
So did you from a car person, did you like it?
I mean, I think it looks nice. It's
Styling is
I think,
is
and then
a
I
hallmark.
think I could not get super close to it because it was swarmed by people and influencers and people more important than me. But the little bit that I did see, I like the way it looks. I think the interior, I saw like all the photos, and I did get a little close to it. Looks nice. The frunk, 2 people can sit on it and chill, so that's
yeah,
cool.
you can sit
I
in
like
the
that.
frunk. Yeah, sit in the frunk.
But
That's the
it's-
front trunk, folks.
Yeah. So no, I mean, I think it's fine. It's just the Lucid, like the Air, like it never did anything for me. It's not my thing. So to me, this was just another like, okay, that's cool. People
Yeah.
will buy it. It's nice, but it's not me.
Now, something you might buy if you ever basically have a family is the 2025 Subaru Forester.
Yeah.
Arguably, the Forester has been the top pick in compact SUVs for longer than I can remember. What's new about this one?
Right.
Its
so this,
look.
it definitely, it looks. The 6th gen model does look new. Yep.
It's a
Finally?
very, it's a very like different.
It's
departure in
contemporary.
styling
Yeah.
For
Give
Subaru.
us some adjectives. What did you see?
Smooth to me. Smooth.
Yeah.
Less
but-
boxy.
You know what it is? It's a combination of every like compact crossover you've seen.
I don't know is that a compliment or an insult. What are you going
Basically,
for?
it's just following that trend. Like
Okay.
a lot of smooth sheet metal, incredibly modern, a lot of angles.
But still
Yeah,
tall
but
because
yeah,
that
still
was-
tall. Still
but
tall.
less it's like less Subaru-y, like that we've seen recently. So less like I felt like there's so much cladding and like some of the shape-wise was a little jelly beanie. It's kind of moving away from that. It's looking a little bit sharper, a little bit more modern. That's at least to me. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
What was the high
when
point for you?
When I think of like the WRX, I think sharp and angular,
Yeah.
especially because like the wheel arches and stuff. But I see your point. Just to put it out there in terms of size, really quick, this like overall dimensions, it really has not changed.
Well,
It's still-
again, I think this is about the 3rd generation where they've kept the same size, which to their credit.
yeah, about 183 inches long. So, and the wheelbase, I have it written down because I can't remember all the numbers. 105 inches. So yeah, it's about the same
it's not
as
that
what
big.
what we have now. All-wheel drive standard. CVT is also standard. So whether you love it or hate it, I'll leave that up to you to decide.
Say the powertrain does not change.
Yeah, Boxer
it's
4,
the-
but yeah, it's the Boxer 4 under the hood. But they did say that for the 26 model year, there should be a hybrid coming.
That's correct.
Not a lot of details
Yes.
given on it, but there is a hybrid waiting.
Well, since they already basically have one on the Crosstrek, it shouldn't be that big of a.
Do they still?
Do they still
sell-
make the
they
Crosstrek?
Don't still, they don't sell the
Well, they
hybrid
did it,
Crosstreks
though.
anymore. But you were correct. Yes,
Yeah.
but
But
those
they
were
have the
plug-in hybrids,
technology.
were they not?
It was, yeah, but they also are mostly owned by Toyota now, so they probably have access to some of the Toyota hybrid technology. I would suspect.
Would be huge
Yeah.
for Subaru if they could get in on the hybrid game, because
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Oh, Subaru owners would be very, very interested.
Yeah, I think
because
a lot
they
of people
are
cross them off their list because of that.
they very well. People that buy Subarus, I think. I mean, it may be marketing, but I think it's true. They're a little more conscious about the
Yeah.
world around them than some other folks. So,
Also, just final notes on it. Stiffer chassis, WRX, dual pinion, electronic power steering rack. These are things kind of mirrored to last year's LA Auto Show when we had the new Impreza get announced. And then the Starlink, the tablet style 11-inch infotainment,
Yeah.
that is now available. It's not standard. The dual 7-inch screen is standard, but for the first time you can get that Starlink tablet on
So the
Forester.
same one that is in the Crosstrek. And
Yeah,
the same
it's
one
that.
that's in the Outback.
You're
Yeah.
thinking, yeah.
So yeah, a lot of shared parts there.
there was a lot going on between Hyundai and Kia. You want to take us down that list? First is the Santa Fe. There's a new Ioniq 5N, the first N for the EVs at Hyundai. Go ahead.
Yeah, the N was actually the first vehicle that I saw that day, because they had one right in the hall, like when you walked in. So you didn't even have to go into the hall. It was like out there by the doors. And I just want to start with that one. I know Santa Fe was technically next, but the N
All right,
is...
give us an idea what you're starting with. The Ioniq 5 basically is their hallmark EV.
Yeah, so I think it's easy to try and compare it to, if you're not familiar, so there's the Kia EV6, and then there's the EV6 GT, which we have in for long term right now if you want to check that out, which is a really fun vehicle. And it's easy to kind of compare the two, and I think it's the same general idea, where you have the Ioniq 5, which is their 2-row electric vehicle,
Compact, little
SUV.
and then they take the N. If you're familiar with Hyundai, their N division is like their performance brand. That is where they soup everything up, and this thing is souped up. My notes say mean looking, and
It is.
It's much
other
more
words,
aggressive.
yeah,
looking.
it is incredibly aggressive. It's got all the N, the red trim and everything, but it's not just about the looks. It's the dual motor all-wheel drive system, up to 641 horsepower, and that is instantaneous with electric motors.
So that
electric power.
outdoes the EV6 GT.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's under 600. It's about like 507.
So they've got their own little horsepower battle going.
Yep,
Go ahead.
0 to 60 in 3.25 seconds. 162 mile an hour top speed, electronically limited. So kind of puts it in perspective,
I think what's
It's-
interesting about this, the Ioniq 5N as well, is that this gets a beefier battery pack than the other Ioniq 5s. This is looking at like an 84 kilowatt hour battery pack, whereas the standard ones are in the 70 something. Now that like our Kia EV6 GT, that gets the same battery pack. So that's good for people who might want to daily.
Yeah, but
daily
it
the Ioniq
really, the extra power in the GT has really cut the range down to just about 200.
Yes.
And so did they give you any range numbers
I
on
don't
the...
think they've put out a range yet.
So obviously they're trying to do better than their cousins.
Yeah.
But I think what they're really trying to do with this Ioniq 5N is replicate the driving experience of an internal combustion vehicle. So they
How,
have
per se? What?
they have a simulated dual clutch
Oh, yeah,
transmission.
yeah.
So you can like feel the shifts, which I think will be very interesting to test out. And also they have a lot of really cool engineering that they've done with the sound and
It's all fake,
it's
folks.
fake, John.
It's all fake.
But at the same time, I don't know. I kind of like respect it in like.
Well, Toyota
aspect
just
of
did a concept, or I saw several pieces on it where they have done exactly the same thing, kind of testing what features or what sensory things from internal combustion engine vehicles can be applied to EVs. So this is just the beginning of all this simulation to get people over the transition.
I'm very much in the middle with it because I don't like the fake sounds and all that, but I understand sound is an important part of the feedback loop of driving a vehicle.
But in a normal vehicle without augmented sound, it's actually telling you something.
Yeah, right. And this is just. I mean, if it's engineered right, I guess it could. But it's not really.
I mean, when I've been in EVs on the track and you don't have the sound on, it's one thing. But when you do have the sound on, it really is like a visceral experience. It absolutely adds to the experience.
It does add. It adds to the driving experience.
And I understand that this is fake and somebody designed it to be this way rather than like just the nature of engineering. But I don't know. I'm not hating it. I'm not hating it. I think. We all have to experience it before we can
we've been experiencing augmented sound in vehicles for years now, and I think we've kind of gotten used to. But this is going to be becoming more, shall I say, obvious, because sometimes the augmented sound, the extra sounds, just sort of make up for weaknesses in the sound that the vehicle will make. This will be making up for the lack of sound that the vehicle makes.
Well, I mean, I think another kind of, this is a little bit of a tangent, but like what Toyota's doing, what they have a manual EV.
Oh, a manual.
I've been reading
that was part of that concept that I was talking about.
Yeah,
where they actually have a shifter and basically make you feel like.
We haven't driven it yet.
I don't think they had a clutch pedal with it. I don't remember.
I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
I just don't. I'm sorry. I just don't see the point.
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
It's a feeling. It's a vibe.
Yeah,
it's something. Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yes,
So Genesis had something there.
Well, Santa Fe. We'll talk
Santa
about
Fe.
Santa
Sorry.
Fe. Yeah, because we had seen the new Santa Fe before.
They've both been that and the Ioniq 5N have been.
Yeah. They've shown them before
globally, but now we finally have the U.S. specs.
Right. Yeah. So Santa Fe. They had two up on stage. One was the calligraphy trim, which I believe is the one that we had seen before, that like bronze colored one. But they also had the new XRT trim, which if going back like with Hyundai, XRT for them is like their off-road sort of, not full-blown like rock crawler.
It's more vibe than anything else.
But you get the extra cladding and you get the bigger wheels, and that's the case here. And I'll touch on that in a little bit. The new Santa Fe.
They really have made it look.
It is completely different.
But when I was shocked when I saw the first photos of it, because it's a total departure for their styling for their internal combustion engine vehicles.
Before reading the press materials when they first came out months ago, and I just saw like that headlining picture, I thought it was an EV. Yeah, I really did. So I thought it was going to be electric, but it is not. But it's got a lot of H's in it. A lot of H pattern. That's the design
really
language they're going with.
That.
It looks. Cool. It looks good. It's very boxy, and it's a 3-row now, I believe. So
it was a 3-row.
Yeah, you could before. Yeah.
It's kind of that same thing that.
It's a squish.
Where it fits in the same with the Sorrento.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 190 inches overall length on a 110-inch wheelbase.
Yeah, it's long. It's a pretty significant sized
It's a big
vehicle.
one.
I mean, it must encroach on the Palisade at this point.
I think the Palisade's just a hair under 200. So yeah.
So it's
in person. Yeah, it felt very close to the Palisade. It is very tall, but I think that's also because I was about to say that. I think it plays into the boxy design really, really well there. And the new XRT will make it even taller because it rides with an extra, I think it's like an inch or an inch and a half of ground clearance.
It's got beefier wheels and tires.
Yeah, the all-terrain tires kind of, I think they're like 30-inch tires that kind of get it up there. And it's got, like I said, the extra cladding and stuff. So if you want the off-road version, you go with that. But for just like city commuting, the calligraphy trims that are probably going to be all the way at the top, and it's going to have all the accoutrements. Like one of the new things they have is this like sterilization tray.
Oh,
You guys saw
put your
that?
phone in it.
Yeah, it's like a UV light sterilization tray. So you put your phone, your keys, or whatever you want in there, and it'll
Sterilize it.
It'll clean
Just
it.
what we all need.
I don't think it's a bad
I
thing.
think people will
Our phones
probably
are
think
so
that's
gross.
It's phone. Yeah, phones.
Put your hand in it.
Phones are gross. Hey, I'm the type that I use like hand sanitizer after I touch the gas pump, you know? I always keep some in my car. So that would be right up my alley.
You and my wife, Cheryl. So,
I don't get sick, John.
that's true.
So it's a good looker. Like I mentioned, it's still internal combustion powered. I believe it's a 2.5 liter is one of the options, and then there's going to be a hybrid 1.6 liter. So at least that's for the North American market. I want to say globally, there's like other powertrains.
Yeah, there's plug-in hybrids.
Yeah.
There's a plug-in hybrid globally, which for whatever reason Hyundai is not bringing here. Not sure. Maybe it's
Might not have enough range on it yet. Who knows?
maybe.
Yeah.
But if it's that same, I'll have to do a little bit more research into it. But you know, the Sorrento's got the plug-in hybrid on the Kia side, so hopefully in the future we'll see that.
Let's talk about before we talk about Genesis. Why don't we talk about the sister operation to Hyundai, which is Kia, and they showed a new Sorrento.
Yeah. So they did have the Sorrento there, and it kind of like what they did with the Santa Fe, where they had like here's the normal or whatever you want to call it, and then we have this XRT for off-road. One of the big things they put a spotlight there on was this new X Pro variant. So if I can speak to that.
Like the Telluride.
Yeah, so just like how XRT for Hyundai would be off-road, X Pro, it's the same deal, John, you hit on it, where it's the off-road vibes.
Right.
So in this case, it's like BF Goodrich all-terrain tires, a little extra ground clearance, towing's up to 4,000 pounds, stuff like that. But beyond that, we had seen the new Sorrento before as well. So if
Had we?
I'm pretty sure they had put something out.
I think they
but
had
it
a
wasn't-
release with a photo.
But it wasn't like
one.
the full blown.
It's very similar. I mean, it's a little refresh. It's a mid-cycle refresh because it was kind of due. But it's very similar to what we saw of the Kia Telluride, which it kind of gets some new fascia. The body stays the same.
Standard refresh, new fascias front and rear, new wheels.
Yeah,
a
the
couple new
interior,
colors.
Maybe
but,
something in the interior. I think it gets maybe like a new screen or something. But
it really didn't need anything. I mean, it was
I thought it was a great
it's a
car.
very, very popular and very good vehicle, and a good choice if you don't want something quite as big as the Telluride. So.
Yeah, and it hasn't. I mean, we talked that it does have a third row, but it's more of like a utility third row that you'd kind of put somebody back there. If they're small, they can fit back there for a little bit longer than if they are taller. But I like the Sorrento, and I didn't actually think it needed a refresh. That looked.
Well, you got
Well,
one.
you got one. Genesis. I mean, Hyundai is the Hyundai Kia Group is spending a lot of money trying very hard to make Genesis a real standout premium brand, much like Lexus is for Toyota. And the GV80 and GV80 Coupe, they turn a lot of heads.
Yeah, I was really excited to see the coupe, especially since we saw that concept in New York earlier this year.
And
Though,
that was good
admittedly,
looking.
this one wasn't orange and it didn't have a roll cage, so
I know.
lose a little points
What the
there.
heck?
Lose a little points there.
They wanted to get a little bit more practical for the Cali
What,
the
bright
consumer.
orange? I think that's going to be the highest take.
It would have stole my heart.
It would
but-
have. He owns
but
an orange Mustang.
Yes, but you can't have it all, I guess, But yeah, so the coupe's going to be new, and it's going to follow the updated styling of the, I guess what we'll call just the SUV version of the GV80, the regular GV80, if you will.
Mercedes-ish nomenclature.
Yeah, so under the hood, I don't think they've put out full details on like the powertrains that are going to be available, but I know the coupe is getting a turbocharged 3.5 liter, or it's a twin turbocharge, I believe, and it's going to be over 400.
twin turbo.
Yeah, over 400 horsepower. So I guess you could argue the coupe will be the more sporty performance.
Which it should.
Yeah,
it should.
Yeah. It's paired up to like an electric supercharger.
48 volt.
48, yeah.
So it's electric superchargers, for those of you that aren't familiar with that particular term, is basically does the same thing as an engine-driven supercharger. It just uses an electric motor. And it is one of the the coming technologies. When you hear us talking about electrified vehicles versus electric vehicles, that's usually what we're talking about, some subsystem like that.
Did we talk about what these look like exactly?
Nope, I don't think you did.
I mean, so the Genesis, it's kind of got the same Genesis look, so it's not like a huge departure, but it is a little like, I want to say like a little bit more futuristic. It's got the lights.
Well, it kind of goes along with what their styling has been doing on the interior, which I think on the last couple of Genesis vehicles has been way ahead of exterior styling.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very luxurious on the inside.
But also very modern.
Modern luxurious.
Almost to the extreme.
Yes. Very simple.
Simple, not Tesla simple, but much more stylish, but still very straightforward and not a lot of obvious controls.
No, and they definitely, I mean, I think when you sit in one, that must be what wins people over.
Yeah.
Just sitting in it is so, you feel like you're engulfed in luxury.
Yeah.
And then you look at the price point and you're like, whoa, that's pretty darn good.
Especially when you compare it to most of its European competition.
Yeah. We don't know the prices on this yet, but they'll be to come.
Let's talk about the vehicle that wasn't supposed to be there, so to speak. The Honda Prelude concept. Give us a little history. Those of you that are not familiar with the Prelude name, it's a name that Honda has used for their sporty coupe for a long time. But how long has it been since we had a Prelude?
21
long,
years.
Almost a generation.
Something like that, yeah.
Over 20 years.
Yeah.
So they showed it in Tokyo, and it made its way to L.A. Some people thought it would be there. Some people they didn't. I'm glad they did bring it because I think there's renewed interest in small coupes.
Yeah, I mean, at the Honda booth, it really stole the show. They did also have the Prologue there, which was cool to see, but we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about the Prelude. It is the two-door sporty coupe, very, well, somewhat reminiscent of the old one in the sense that it's, I guess, a two-door coupe. Does not have pop-up headlights, unfortunately. You don't get that. But yeah, to me, when I look at it, it kind of gives the vibe, or like it could be the competitor to like Toyota's GR86, though I don't think it's really going to be.
I don't think it's going to be that serious.
And
right.
It's going to be more. I hate to use the old term, personal luxury in a way, personal luxury coupe.
Yeah, so they didn't give any details on powertrain. Right. It's expected to be hybrid, and if it's going to follow traditional Prelude things, it's going to be front-wheel drive.
Right. So I hope they put a decent amount of power in it, because one of the things that the Prelude history taught us was you can do a sporty car, but you need to make sure it's got decent guts, and it always a little underwhelmed there.
Yeah, I mean, it has an interesting look to it. I think it kind of looks like if they had decided to actually bring a Civic coupe, but just like a little bit longer, I think. I think it beats it in length a little bit.
Yeah, it's long hood, short rear deck kind of proportions.
Yeah, so I think those who really miss having a two-door Civic or two-door Accord, because there are a lot of folks out there, those enthusiast buyers who
want something a little more sporty than a sedan, but don't really want to give up everyday usefulness.
Exactly. So I think this would be really appealing. Now, the hybrid aspect to it, will it be so appealing to the enthusiasts? I don't know. So that is kind of an interesting move, I think, for Honda. Bring back the two-door coupe, but hybrid.
Well, but the hybrid theoretically with the electric motor should make it perform a little bit better.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
forget the fuel economy for a moment.
That makes sense.
That's what I was going to say. But you put more horsepower under the hood. I mean, the enthusiasts will like it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the EV. Why don't you take us let people be a little more familiar with that? This Prologue is the EV that Honda is building in conjunction with General Motors using the GM chassis. They've now canceled future models doing this, but this one was already in the works. Did you have a chance to look at it in detail? Because I haven't seen it.
A little bit of it.
Did it look like a Honda, or did it look like something?
To me, I got Honda vibes out of it.
Good.
It kind of, I don't want to say it's like the new CR-V. I think maybe dimensionally in some ways it is, but in terms of looks, it's not quite that. But I don't know. There's something about the way the front fascia looks, the way it's shaped. It's a little boxy, but still has some, we were just talking about like some of the smoother edges on there. To me, made me kind of think a little bit in that direction. But yeah, so this is going to be their electric SUV, and it's also the Acura version of it, the ZDX, which you may remember the ZDX nameplate. Well, it's coming back, and it's going to be their
all electric this
their
time.
take on it as well. Yeah. So 85 kilowatt hour battery pack. This is stuff we've kind of talked about before when we've mentioned the Prologue. 288 horsepower, 330 something pound-feet of torque.
The curious thing to me is the fact that this is actually being built for Honda by General Motors. Now, if you go back 10 or 20 years and tried to do this, people would be saying they can't possibly put the quality in that we're used to from Honda. But of course, these days, GM and all the domestics build very good vehicles. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether the public accepts it as a Honda, and hopefully the ownership experience will be the same. I don't remember off the top of my head. Is there a range for the Prologue?
That's a good question.
I don't have it on hand.
It's in excess of 230, I think.
Because that Blazer EV, I think, is kind of a conservative under and around 300 maybe. So no, it's a good platform, the LTM platform. It pretty much always exceeds the EPA ranges. So
it does. On everyone that we've tested.
I believe Honda is estimating 300 miles.
Okay,
now, I don't know with what setup. There could be multiple setups.
That could be with a two-wheel drive version.
We'll definitely know more. We should be driving it soon. So.
And last but not least, the 2024 Cadillac Optic, their smaller all-electric SUV.
It wasn't at the show.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't get to see it.
Teasers, but they did it like the Friday after the
almost as everybody was boarding their planes.
Yes,
pretty much.
I was on my plane.
Yeah. But there's been a lot out there about it. There's been spy shots floating around.
I mean, it's kind of like a baby Lyric a little bit. So this is built on the same sort of size-wise and the same platform as the Equinox or Equinox EV, which is technically their Cadillac's or GM's entry. So it'll be their entry-level EV.
So compact, two-row, probably a reasonable range, but nothing that you want to take cross-country trip in, probably. Yeah.
But and if we don't know anything about it. They just showed us some pictures, and that's how we know that it looks like a baby Lyric. But because it's supposed to slot underneath the Lyric, ideally price-wise, this will probably start somewhere around $50,000. I mean, do you think so, John? I mean, that's where the Lyric starts.
Well, they've got to they must feel under intense pressure from Tesla and the Model Y.
Oh, yeah.
And so they've got to,
in that ballpark.
They've got to basically make sure that it is competitive, and they've got to have some space at the bottom for them to basically lower the price a little bit, because no one knows what Elon's going to do. The more competition he gets, his response seems to be to cut price.
And that Equinox EV, GM has already stated, is supposed to start at $35,000.
That's correct. That's going to be their EV fleet vehicle for anyone that wants something more than a Bolt.
Yeah, so move up to a little bit more luxury, entry-level luxury. It must be around 50.
Well, thank you guys for terrific discussion. Alex, glad you had a chance to come back to go to the show and come back with so much.
I'm glad I made it back too. Yeah.
But we didn't mention the fourth generation Toyota Tacoma. You had a chance to drive that while you were out there. So we'll come back later in the podcast for the details of that. Bound to be a big hit. A lot of people are going to want to know about that. Before we move on, I think it's proper that we pause a second and thank our sponsors of this podcast and also of our series MotorWeek, Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper, and also the folks over at TireRack.com. We know your listeners, our listeners, everybody, our staff appreciate your dedication to MotorWeek and all things MotorWeek. Thank you very much for being such great supporters of our enterprise. Okay, let's move on now to our lightning round, where traditionally we have about 30 seconds for each of us to talk on some trending automotive topic. Starting next year, you will be able to actually shop for your next new Hyundai vehicle through Amazon. Now, this is a step up from just being able to browse cars and compare prices, which you could already do on their site. Now, buyers will be able to see the cars in their specific area, choose financing or payment options, and then arrange delivery from their local dealer. The idea is this bridges the gap between online direct sales and existing Hyundai dealer networks. So, do we think this is going to have a big impact, be a whimper, change the way we do business? What do you think?
I mean,
who wants to start? I bet Jessica does.
You still got to go into the dealership if you want to test drive it.
Well, I hope so.
And the dealer is still very involved in this transaction.
You have to usually go there to sign the papers and do everything else.
And I saw a screenshot somebody did using the tool, and a market adjustment is in it. So it's not like it stops them from adding ADMs on their vehicles.
Explain what an ADM is.
So that's just a dealer markup.
It's what we call those extra charges on the windows beyond the Monroney label.
Sneaky
for
$2,000.
Used to be for undercoating and then lifetime wax jobs.
And now it's going to cost you an extra $3,000 to buy this car because, well, we
can get that for it.
So I don't know. I mean,
but does it come with Prime?
Oh, that's a good question.
I'm just saying, lifetime Prime.
No, probably not. Probably not. No.
They didn't learn that from Elon.
Do I think it's helpful to consumers? I mean, maybe in the car buying process, it might be a little bit more. I like the idea of things being broken down and you seeing this is what you're going to pay for the car. The dealer
no mystery.
The dealer can't be sneaky with numbers when it comes to a tool.
Right.
So I like that aspect of it, but it's not that direct to sales thing that I think most people would probably prefer.
We are the type of folks that just cannot imagine someone spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for a vehicle and not having experienced it, driven it completely, spent quite a bit of time researching it and just knowing that it fits them properly.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all say that we've had our grievances or our issues with dealerships, but my follow-up to that is, would it be any better buying your car through Amazon? I don't really know.
That's a good point.
You're still dealing with the dealer.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You're just No, that's fair. To me, it's just adding an extra step to a process that already doesn't need more
you
steps.
could go on the dealer website and pretty much see the same thing.
I think as maybe a car buying tool, as a way to compare, it could be a very valuable system to look at everything available, but I don't
there might be some more transparency in it.
Simply because of the way Amazon does business.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so what's going to...
So it's there if you want to use it.
What's going to be the proof of the pudding here, one way or the other, is how many others will follow suit.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because, Amazon being Amazon, I'm sure it's very good for Hyundai.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, it's more publicity, and it puts the car in people's, in their recommended in their algorithm or whatever. So
and Hyundai's not new to Amazon.
No.
So this, it could be a good step for them, and maybe it will benefit consumers.
We'll see.
We shall see.
Staying on the subject of basically doing things a little bit differently, we have a YouTube comment from Julio. And it is, which EVs will be able to use the Tesla charging network next year? Now, to give you some background, because of the reported unreliability of existing charging infrastructure, and we keep talking about it on MotorWeek all the time about how people complain that sometimes the fast chargers are out of whack, and the Tesla supercharger system has a superior reputation. For the last really 6 to 9 months, it's been one automaker after another has said, starting a year or two from now, we're going to be adopting the North American Charging System, which is a fancy name for the Tesla plug. And so far, by my count, everyone except Volkswagen and Stellantis has signed up, but there's different timings. The question was, who's going to be using it next year?
next year.
That means
I'm pretty
2024.
Sure, I'm pretty sure everyone by the end of next year.
With an adapter or
With an
something.
Yes,
adapter.
yeah, they won't be
Yes.
building the vehicles with the port. I think the earliest one's 2025, right?
I think
that's what I
Ford,
read.
I think, said 2025.
I want to say 2025, but it's not clear if they are model year 25
Oh, yeah.
Or
Good point.
calendar year,
year 25.
Yeah.
I think they've
But I'm
left that
thinking it's-
fuzzy for a reason.
Yeah, it's a little fuzzy, but we do know that by the end of next year, pretty much everybody who's been making these deals with Tesla will have an adapter. So even though you're going to have the CS port, which is the traditional port that you see on most EVs that are not Teslas, you will be able to have an adapter that will allow you to use Tesla's superchargers.
Now, the most important thing about this is that the Tesla systems, basically, they're superchargers. Most people that own Teslas simply plug their car in. It's a plug and play. They walk away from it. They don't have to do any fiddling. It talks to the car. It knows what the car pays. And all of that is supposed to transfer over to these other manufacturers that are going to be using it. If that happens, without any real bumps in the road, that's going to be a major, almost revolution in charging for what we're facing today.
I mean, we've seen already in California and New York, Tesla has opened some of their chargers to outside brands. Now, this is literally only in California and only in New York, and I can't imagine they're going to open up any new ones in the meantime, since everyone has pretty much pledged that they're going to be sending out adapters sometime next year. But from what I've heard, we haven't heard any issues with reliability.
They have to
yet.
rewire them, or there's some changes beyond software. I think they have to do.
Part of it is the cords. The charging cords.
Oh, they're not long enough.
Because all the Teslas are specifically designed, so the cords are a certain length, and everybody else is just
some have in the front, some in the back.
Yeah. So, and the way that pretty much all Tesla superchargers are set up is actually pretty brilliant. I mean, it really is an incredibly efficient way to do things. They just line them all up right next to each other, and you just pull in, back in, whatever you do, and you just plug it in, and that's it. And you don't have to worry about if somebody's parked one way or the other.
Plus, their cords are thinner and lighter and less difficult to wrestle with than the DC fast chargers that so many other of the charging networks use.
I think now that is the pro of that, is that they're very lightweight and easier to manage. But the con is at the same time they can't get the same amount of current. I think Tesla's max out at somewhere like 220
and
kilowatts.
We're seeing
or
a lot of
something.
cars that are basically 350 acceptable and more.
We're starting to see more chargers pop up that are 350 and cars that are capable of being able to reach all of that. Now, at this point, most cars cannot achieve 350 kilowatt, charging, but they can do most of them can do 150 plus under maybe around 200.
These are chargers, folks. These superchargers, along with what we call DC fast chargers or level 3 chargers, that basically can give you an up to 80% charge in anywhere from 30 to 40, 50 minutes or so. Yeah. So they truly are fast compared to plugging in home, even if you have a level 2 charger, 240 or 220 at home. So I wonder just how much, and I haven't heard that there's got to be some lingering issue of pushback from Tesla owners who basically were promised that this was all going to be theirs exclusively. I mean,
I think some of them
everybody and their brother starts to use their chargers.
I think some people in California are really starting to see it, and it's because Teslas are so
common out
there that it's it was already getting a little crowded for their group of Teslas, and now you're adding more and more cars into that. So I think we just hope that the infrastructure continues to build in a reliable way.
I'm glad we're starting to standardize things or keep
It's about time.
Simple across the board.
It's
but it
about
does make
time.
me wonder, like, how often are there then going to have to be updates to things? Like, for example,
to it,
you just mentioned the cable. So now we've got to up the cable for the volume of electricity you want to send through. Well, then what happens in 5 years or 6 years? Are they then going to have to go through and do it again, or the box is going to have to get swapped? So, but those are all like growing pains that just come with technology and progress. So it's what it is. I guess
it's certainly not ever going to be as simple as a gas pump.
Sure.
That's all we know.
Julio, hope that answers your question. And by the way, everyone out there, if you'd like to submit your own question for us to answer here on one of our podcasts, send an email to us at motorweek@pbs.org. That's motorweek@pbs.org. Okay, our final topic, the Toyota Tacoma. We've teased it twice. Alex, it's been the king of the mid-size pickup segment for decades, but the current platform and powertrains are aging, and they face some tough new competition from Ford and GM and eventually Stellantis. And so what have they done to stay on top? Alex, you were there in California. You had a chance to drive the new 2024 Tacoma. Is it really different? Because the last one, they said it was different, but it wasn't.
This is on a new platform.
It is an all-new platform.
It's on the big truck platform.
Yep, so in its underpinnings, yes. But I think in a lot of ways, it has retained what's made it so legendary. And that's where I wanted to start it with. You kind of hit on it. Recently, we've driven a lot of mid-sized trucks, and it seems like there is a resurgence. I don't think that's just me.
There definitely is, yes.
I think price is a big factor.
And I think a big part of that is not just overlanding, but that's part of it. Like anytime I've gone off-roading, I prefer a mid-sized truck over a full-size truck. And if there's one name in the game that I guess you could call legendary, I would say it's the Tacoma.
Clearly, they took the crown away from the Ford Ranger. Ford Ranger used to be king until Tacoma basically upped its game.
Let's put this in context. The Tacoma outsells everything by a ton, and specifically it outsells both GM models by like two, like double every year.
People love tacos.
They do. They move 200,000 units easy every year.
But one of the reasons they've always been so successful was their legendary off-road capability, even if you weren't taking them off-road. I mean, you talk to almost any dedicated 4x4 fan, and, at the top of their list of vehicles they want to buy to go out in the hinterland is a Tacoma.
Yep, there's a lot of support for them, but even just inherently with the design, they are rugged. They are built for the task. So yeah, I got to go out to California, just north of Malibu, to do a lot of driving. And I should preface this by saying I did not drive the iForce Max hybrid versions,
which is the Performance Max.
Those are
Performance
going to
hybrid, rather.
And those are going to be standard in, for example, the TRD Pro, which is like the oh my godder of off-roaders in the lineup, and also the Trail Hunter, which is probably also going to be the oh my godder of off-road, but it's also going to be available in some of the other grades. So everything I drove that day was either the standard or the iForce, not the iForce Max, just the iForce. But regardless, it's a 2.4 liter turbocharged four-cylinder under the hood. And I'll talk about power output in just a moment.
So no more V6.
Right.
We should make that clear.
It is a four-cylinder. No matter what, you're getting a four-cylinder. You may get the hybrid-assisted one or whatnot, but it's going to be a four-cylinder. But there are different power outputs. I'll get to that in a second. One of the other things I wanted to touch on with the Tacoma is it's always been at least to me, a configurable truck. It's a truck that you can buy in a bunch of different grades, in a bunch of different ways. And at a time right now where most automakers seem to be going towards, you get this cab, you get this bed,
and specifically,
that engine.
Toyota has really honed in some of their other production lines. We were literally just talking about it on the Camry.
Yeah. And here it's not the case. So when I looked at the pricing sheet before I considered hybrids and all of that, I counted 21 different configurations. 21. And that is not with that's not with oh, I'm going to get this optional wheel package and stuff. That is just talking grade. That's talking grade and powertrain. That's talking cab, bed length, power distribution, transmission.
They're going the absolute opposite way that not only Camry, but also folks like the Ford F-150 are going.
Yes, definitely with the yeah.
So underpinning all of them is Toyota's TNGA-F platform, which we already mentioned. That is used for the Tundra. That's their full-size pickup. But it's also used on the Sequoia and the Land Cruiser utilities as well. So they are kind of sharing that. Already mentioned it. All the powertrains are 2.4 liter. Starting with the base, that's the SR, so that's as low as you can get. That's the least power. It's 228 horsepower and 243 pound-feet of torque. You can then step. It's the same engine. You can get the 8-speed if you go to another grade. So SR5 and up, you're going to go all the way up to 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque. But
that's pretty.
It's more than the V6.
That's very good.
Yeah.
But for the true enthusiast at heart, if you still want 6 on the floor, you want a 6-speed manual, you can still buy that in the Tacoma. And that one gets slightly less power. It's still good, though. It's 270 horses and 310 pound-feet of torque.
Do you know what grades?
A good number of them, like the TRD off-road, for example, you can get with a stick shift.
Well, that's again because there are a lot of off-road purists that even though time and time again we can prove that automatics can be superior off-road, they want that clutch pedal.
And just to throw it out there real quick, when the TRD Pro comes out and the Trail Hunter, anything with the iForce Max, you cannot get the stick shift with, because the way the Max works is they put that
the
motor
extra motor inside of the
the
transmission.
bell housing, of the auto. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, and I actually started the day in the stick shift, and I want to talk about this really quick because my dad always used to talk about how, and he still does to this day, that you bought the stick shift before either because you bought a sports car or whatever and sporting potential, or you did it to save money. And if you look at the pricing sheet of the Tacoma, the manual will save you some money, but to me, they are still offering this because it's for enthusiasts.
Absolutely.
It is for
It used
the
to also
people-
be about saving fuel, which is not anymore.
that too.
Yeah.
It's not to say the auto is not for enthusiasts. Like, I went off-roading in an automatic, and it was great. I had no quarrels
But say
with
for
that.
like a daily driver.
Yeah,
Did you go for the auto?
Yes, I even said it in my first
Do you
drive.
really want to handle rush hour traffic with a manual transmission?
You know what I did? I left the hotel in the 6-speed Tacoma,
So you were in
and
California?
I drove out to the mountains, and I'm thinking this is where to test it. I come around a bend, county work truck. I'm in first gear the whole way up the mountain. I'm like, so I get to the ranch, and they're like, "What'd you think of the stick shift?" And I was like, first gear was nice. So they let me go out again and actually drive it. And then I got to really feel it. So it's a great enthusiast offering. But yeah, if I had to choose, I would go with the new 8-speed automatic. It's just smooth. It puts the power down. You can get 2-wheel drive. I kind of mentioned that. You can also get 4-wheel drive as expected. When it comes to the cabs, you can get an extra cab, which is the 2-door version of it.
Yeah, here we go. Go ahead.
No, John does not like this configuration.
I don't. Explain
so
what
the
this
extra
is.
cab does. It is a 2-door model that seats 2 people, and in the back because there is a little bit of a back. But there are no jump seats, and there's no third door or like half door to open up to get to your cargo.
We used to
or your
call them
tools.
extended cab pickups, and then Ford came along and put back doors back there, so you could actually get in the back, and they had fold down like child seats or whatever. But this is just basically a slightly longer cab with no way to access that storage space except reach behind the front seats. It just seems so cheap to me.
I will say it is pretty easy to fold down the seat and throw your gear back there. Like I threw all my Camry equipment in the back.
Or reach for your gear, because that's, I think, the biggest thing. Like
it's just a hassle when I had my drive partner, so every time I wanted to pull over and set up a camera or do something, it's like, hey, can you hop out so I can fold your seat down? Then he's got to reposition it every time. And but there are like lockable storage boxes back there, so like for a work truck it's probably okay. And that's going to come with I should mention, a 6-foot bed. If you step up to the double cab, that's the 4-door seats,
the crew cab.
Yes, it's 5 people. You can get that with either the 5 or the 6-foot bed.
So you can get a 6-foot bed on.
To my understanding,
Yeah, you can.
That's Are they the only ones? Because I don't think the Ranger or the GM.
I think so, because
Ranger
Ranger is no, you can't get a 6-foot bed.
And the only one I'm not GM either.
The only one I'm not
GM.
sure about would be Nissan. That's the
No,
only one.
Frontier only has the one configuration.
Only the one? Okay.
Yeah. So
They
that's
have a king cab, but I don't think it comes with a 6-foot
that would be a
bed.
big selling point to me, because I've got an old Ranger, the original Ranger with a 6-foot bed, and it's an extended cab, 4-door, and I would miss every time we take a smaller truck home. The first thing I notice is I can get just that much less lengthwise in it, more hanging out the back. Yeah, they're deeper, and volume-wise, you're okay. But I want that 6-foot bed if I can get it.
Yeah.
Another big change here is to the suspension. So leaf springs are still around. Yeah, on the base offerings, it's like the standard option, if you will. But on most grades, you can opt for, or it comes standard on the higher grades, a coil rear suspension.
That's a big change for them.
Which is a big shakeup. And then each grade kind of has its own tuning to that.
Sure.
So the TRD, like the Sport, is going to have a more sport tune suspension, whereas the TRD Off-Road, shocker, it's going to have off-road tune suspension, like remote reservoirs and stuff like that. It gives you a little bit more length and heat dissipation capabilities out on the trail. That's what I off-roaded in, and then obviously I got to drive it on the street. And I do think the new coil suspension, it smooths out a lot of the bumps. It's more comfortable. But I spent a lot of time in the leaf springs, and again, I made a comment of this in my first drive where I think the leaf spring is comfortable enough and it feels agile enough for the kind of package that you're getting.
And it's also much more rugged. So if you're really a serious off-roader, you probably will stick with leaf springs if you can.
Yeah, and you can get those like on the base SR. You can go up to the SR5. Pre-runner is a grade that is, I believe, 2-wheel drive only, which is a little bit of a bummer.
That's a teaser.
But it's got the leaf springs and like the 6-foot bed. It's an extra cab, so you gotta live with that.
Well, I think it'll probably do very, very well. But obviously, they've been looking at what Ram's doing and their success in going to an all-coil spring suspension, and they said if they can do it, we can do it.
And I should mention the Limited, you can get adaptive dampers on it. So the Limited being the top grade, or at least before you get into like the TRD Pro and everything like that. That's got all the like really fancy, like the seats, the leather and all that.
We should talk about the interior very briefly before we...
That's actually has always been my biggest problem with Tacoma, is that I never found them that comfortable. They felt a little narrow. I'm a tall guy, so my legs are always stretched out in front of me too far. But now that they're doing it on basically the full-size truck chassis, I wonder if that's changed.
I definitely wasn't uncomfortable in. I would say the only time I felt uncomfortable in any of the new Tacomas was when I was driving the stick shift, and maybe uncomfortable is not the right way to put it, but just leg positioning, foot
positioning. You didn't feel like you were in the right space.
Yeah,
like
and I may have just not adjusted it properly, but like to me, like the clutch engagement's a little high, so it just, seating was a little bit weird. But I felt like the new interior was that perfect blend, or perfect's probably an overstatement, but a very good blend of that like ruggedness and that sort of like simplified nature, but it brought in enough. Like for example, standard is an 8-inch head unit, and you can get like a 7-inch instrument panel. Yeah, but on the higher trims, if it's not standard, it's available. It's a 14-inch screen, which is
actually really big.
Yeah, when you sit in that truck,
when I saw some video, I was like, that's
well, when you see it in other Toyotas, you kind of like full size, so you're like, okay, like it's a big screen, and then you sit in a Tacoma and it's there, and you're like, wow,
that's got to be almost the biggest in any.
It's the same one in the Grand Highlander. No, not the Grand Highlander. Sequoia.
Sequoia.
Yeah,
it's definitely the same size as the
That's a big screen.
It is in that Tacoma. It is huge.
It's horizontal.
Yeah. It's not a vertical tablet.
Not being confused with the big tablets.
And it's also not like integrated into. It's not like it's integrated. It does
there.
stick out a little bit.
I don't think it looks bad. It's just that it's
big.
Huge. Yeah.
It's big. It's big.
But no, I didn't think the interior was uncomfortable at all, and like the different grades have different trims and different little accessories. Lots of cloth, but heated and ventilated stuff throughout the lineup. You just have to get the right package.
But basically, it needed a new interior.
It needed a thorough redo, and it sounds like that's what they've done. They've continued with basically even calling it all new, the same truck for quite a while. So
the last one we had, and I think was a TRD of some sort. Was it a sport?
It was either, I think it was a sport. It may have been the
blue
off-road.
one?
Yeah, the blue one. I'm pretty sure it was a sport.
I was not a fan of that.
Well,
I
it
drove
showed
it
its
home.
age.
Yeah, but that's exactly why you're like, all right, yeah, this is due for a thorough going through and saying, hey, how can we improve this? Because it did not feel like a car that should be built in 2023.
Well, clearly they have stepped up. They've taken a good look at their competition, and they've set the Tacoma up for the next decade.
I guess the final note will be that the non-hybrids, they're going to be available in December. So
starting price.
Yes,
Where are we
that's
going with
that's
the
what I was gonna kind of lead into there.
For this
so
lovely redesign?
With destination, you're going to start at I'll round up because it's a couple bucks, $33,000 essentially. That's for a base SR. That's for the extra cab.
Yeah, but you're going to top out at
what are we topping out
probably
at?
60, I would imagine, close to it.
53 and a half for limited before options.
Okay.
And again, that's non-hybrid. I can almost guarantee the TRD
gonna be
Pro is
Another
going to
$1,500
be
or so.
more, and the Trail Hunter is going to be more. So, and then all the grades,
basically well into at least the bottom end of full-size truck territory.
Yeah, the pre-runner, a couple notable mentions. The pre-runner starts at about $40,000, and the TRD off-road, which is, if I was going to buy one, probably the one I'd get, especially in that orange color. I love it. Probably about
He really does, folks.
It's
He's not kidding.
It is the best. That starts at like 43. So there you have it.
Ever heard of McLaren Orange?
I've seen McLarens in orange, so I'm going to assume that's
McLaren
it.
Orange.
Yeah,
That's it.
hey, it's a great color.
You would have loved it in its day.
Every time I spec out a Porsche, I build it in Gulf orange.
Oh, brother. Thanks, Alex.
You got it.
Oh, my. All right, we're about to wrap up this podcast, but we're going to finish up with our traditional rant and rave section. Anyone got one this week? There's silence around the table. That's very unusual.
I think I've done it the last 2 times. I'll give it.
Well, usually
my mind is blank. I'm okay. I'm okay this
That's
week.
the first time I've ever heard you say that. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I was going to joke and say more cars should be painted in orange, but for an actual rant or rave,
Well, that's good. Maybe things are improving.
John, I might have a little bit of a rave.
All right.
Go for
This is
it.
a personal. This is a personal
I'm here
one.
for it.
Well,
I wanna
that's
hear
what,
it.
a lot of the rant and raves have become or have been over the years very personal experiences, but also don't limit it to that. Some manufacturer doing something that you like or don't like, but go ahead.
I have some,
right.
it's kind of like personal news a little bit.
Okay.
Is that I have a Ford Maverick.
Oh, she's finally
that's
getting
right.
her
That's
Ford
right.
Maverick.
I ordered it in September of 2022. It was built a couple of weeks ago.
And it's in transit.
It is in transit
So
from
by
Mexico.
the time we do probably the next podcast, you might be able to tell us your first impressions of it.
Hopefully
might.
all raves and no rants.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
No, it'll be
my
great.
first ever new car purchase.
Yeah.
So I'm excited and
And also
nervous
you love Jeeps, so how are you going to feel driving this?
Oh, well, I am going to be so excited driving this because I had to drive home from Thanksgiving in my Jeep the other day, and it was 9, 10 o'clock at night. It was 20-mile-per-hour winds, and I was driving, on the highway. It was at 60 miles an hour.
And you basically being pushed all over the place.
I was being pushed all over the place. There were lots of semi-trucks out, of course, and I'm flying with I have a two-door. I've got this tiny
She's
little
a real
wheelbase
Jeep Wrangler fan.
with a vinyl top.
Yeah.
You just get thrown around. It's not comfortable. You're stressed for about 3 hours when you're driving. And so basically, and I have to wear a winter coat because it's so cold. Can never keep heat. So I'm going to be so excited. And this little box of a trucklet that'll have heat.
Trucklet.
And
That's a good one.
John, people have complained that maybe the interior of the Maverick is a little
Plain
and plastic and cheap.
It looks
Doesn't
like it
start
came out
in,
of
the
a
low
Revell
20s?
model kit.
Starts in the low 20s, yes.
Yeah.
But I'm coming from a Jeep Wrangler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
that's an upgrade.
expectations, this is going to be huge.
This will be
for
a big
me.
step up for you.
It doesn't even have a heated steering wheel, but that doesn't matter.
That's okay.
I've got
The
gloves.
winds of change are here, and they're not going to blow you around the highway.
Exactly.
Well said, Alex.
Aerodynamics, it's a hybrid. I'll have once I get it in, we'll definitely talk more about it.
I'm looking forward to
guys,
it.
it was an experience. The last God, 15 months of trying to get
Long
this thing.
wait. She almost gave up the ghost a couple times. Thinking,
Yeah, I was definitely thinking, wow, am I
never
going to
see it. Thanks, everybody. Okay, let's wrap this up. Thanks to everyone out there for listening to our podcast today. And by the way, if you're wondering what time MotorWeek can be seen on your local public television station, all you have to do is go to our website, MotorWeek.org, click on the tab Watch MotorWeek, and then enter your zip code for the days and times in your area. Or you can hop on over to our cable partner, MavTV.com, for their schedule. By the way, you can also stream MotorWeek episodes for free on your mobile device or streaming box by downloading the PBS app. It's available at your device's app store or streaming channel library. All of the individual road test and feature segments are also available 24/7 on youtube.com/MotorWeek. In short, if you have a screen, you can watch MotorWeek. Thanks to Alex Kellum. Thanks to Jessica Ray, our podcast producer, our audio engineer, David Wainwright, podcast creator, Bob Mixter. I'm John Davis. Thanks for being a part of MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by Auto Value and Bumper to Bumper and TireRack.com. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.